All right, welcome to the Tyrian Trophy 2016. For those of you new to the event, this is a 5 vs 5 battle cruiser and lower battle, hosted by Red vs Blue and Eve University. We held this event 2 years ago, internal with RVB, but decided to make it go public this year. For those of you familiar with the Alliance tournament style, this is in that style with a points-based system for purchasing ships, and mostly the same rules. So we've already finished the first match, but we're having some minor issues. So let me go ahead and report on those two matches that we just had. The first one was Eve University versus Kamikaze Dragoons, also of Eve University, with, unsurprisingly, Eve University coming out as the victor and the loser. And now Bawako Akami of Eve University will be dropping to the losers bracket with his Kamikaze Dragoons from Eve University. Test, also participating in this match, has just seeded to Make Amar great again, as they were not able to field their team in time. So coming up soon will be the third match, the first live match of Red versus Blue versus Coupbois in about 7 minutes. We're just getting the teams on grid in a few minutes. The major differences between, this is a question I've gotten several times, between EVE Online and the EVE Tournament series that are run either by CCP or by individuals like RVB or other groups, or even T, for example, which, by the way, thank you for hosting us today, is that EVE is itself a sandbox, so there's not a lot of structured PvP. There's a lot of complaints sometimes about players who come from other games that there's not enough ability for structure. You can only do a duel system where you have to go places where you're likely to get teamed up on by many people and essentially just blobbed to death. But these tournaments are very structured. There are limitations on the ships you can bring, the modules you can use, the way that you fit those ships out with weapons and support that allow for just a different style of fighting. Very structured, very more of a fair fight. So it definitely comes down to piloting skill, who the fleet commander is, how they decide to take the fight that they've seen in front of them. They get little to no notice. They get about 60 seconds to decide everything that's going to happen in the next 10 minutes and hope that they're able to pull out and win the day. Also with us is Ithaca Hawk, introducing the Tyrian Trophy with me today. He'll be with us on match 3. Ithaca, do you have anything?
Hello, thank you for having me. I was just looking through some of the rules. I see you've based this tournament on the standard rule set from AT, SCL, and the Neo, which, unlike what EVNT are doing with the pre-fit ships, you're allowing individual pilots and teams to fit their own ships and come up with their own doctrines. The difference you seem to have here is you have your E-War bonus with the scripts. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. This is one of the conundrums that every structured PvP group or tournament has taken a different stance on. And we decided to go with allowing scripts so that ECM itself is not the only E-War that is kind of leaned upon, as it was during the Alliance tournament, which is also, in my view, overpowered when you get to a smaller group. You can essentially have one ship that can jam out an entire enemy team the fewer people in that team you get. So we decided to open it up to all E-War, but you limit it to one single bonus hull. So with that, you can have a Blackbird, or you can have a Kitsune, or you can even have a Rook or a Falcon, but that points cost to doing so is a lot higher than it would be in the AT. You only get, in relation to the AT, you get about half the pilots, but you get 1/3 of the points to spend on those pilots for the ships. So versus EVNT, where, like you said, they have the pick and ban system that is much better and much heavier than even the Alliance tournament, but they're also pre-fit ships. So we decided to let people have the freedom to fit the ships the way they wanted to and do a little more, but had to go a little heavier on the ship restrictions and eliminate the banning system completely, just to allow people to bring their best and duke it out.
So the question is then, do you think people will be happy to take that high point cost for those EWAR cruisers and bring them, or do you think they'll forgo that and go with a 5th DPS ship or a logistics ship?
I think we're going to see a true mix of both, and that's what I'm excited about. Is all teams have come at me with different questions, either on the side or on the main threads with the rules and setups, and I think everybody's going to take a very different approach to it. Some of them are going to be willing to spin the points and roll the dice, as it were, but some people are going to be a little more wary. This is going to be the same thing with Logi. Logi is half your points if you go with a Tech 2 Cruiser Logi, but it will not.
So it's really something you want to build your comp around.
Right, exactly.
And also with the addition of scripts, then you get ships like the Celestis, which previously in AT and so on, you had unbonused damps they could field, but now with a bonus damp with the script, that could be incredibly powerful. The arbitrators with your tracking disruptors. If you bring an arbitrator against a very tracking heavy comp, that could be, just rolling the dice. What if they bring missiles? So it could definitely be some interesting games.
And that is the conundrum of all of the tournament series. You don't allow mobile depots for that reason, but you always roll the dice. And we actually had an interesting match. Rote Capel knocked us out of the Alliance tournament this year, and they had brought, I believe it was a Sentinel, and they brought Kitsune and all this other kind of disruption that really did do us in. They gambled right. I'm not sure. We didn't ever kill it, so we didn't notice if the fit was purely tracking or purely missiles, but definitely a gamble that can work in your favor if you are presented with an enemy comp. But then again, without bans, as I mentioned before, there is no way of knowing or influencing what the enemy brings. So they really are going to be bringing what they believe is their best comp.
And of course, a lot of people say that in competitive EVE esports, the game is sometimes won before you've even taken the field. The meta and figuring out what your opponents are likely to fly can be just as important as bringing a good fit, bringing a good team, and bringing good pilots.
Absolutely. One of the other interesting things about this is because it was introduced a little later and made public a short time ago, we hoped that teams wouldn't almost organize the way they do for AT and practice against each other so much that a true meta developed, because we wanted to see some of those interesting and oddball setups that might, shock and awe versus seeing some of the more standard setups. But we definitely think that our rule set does allow for both that and more of the standard kind of fittings and setups that you might expect.
Yeah, I think it looks like it'll allow people to take the standard tried and tested comps and run them, but it also gives a little bit of wiggle room for people to come up with some out-of-the-box crazy wildcard ideas that maybe you're putting all your eggs in one basket, but if that basket works, it could be pretty spectacular. See some of those matches.
Absolutely.
For sure. So I do believe the teams are warping to the arena shortly.
We seem to be having an issue. We might. All right, we're gonna delay the match another 5 minutes.
Looks like we have a red pilot.
With one pilot.
Yeah, 2 jumps out.
It's okay. There's one in every group, and he's probably bringing a drink.
And you can bring a Drake, if I'm correct.
You can. So that was one of the other things is, along with allowing T2 cruisers, which is, again, a little bit of balance, there are even more points than a battle cruiser, but you can bring T1 battle cruisers, and you can put links on one ship in your 5-man comp. So while you don't have the 10 ships and the 100 points to spread out all of your support and all your tackle and all your links like you do in the Alliance tournament or even other tournament series, you do have the opportunity. We did see links used in the last match, but no Logi, so we just saw a single link ship used in the last match.
Links for most teams, especially in my opinion in a 5v5, links are incredibly important. The difference that one link can make to a fight can be extreme, especially if you're bringing Logi when the resist bonus could be critical. Give you an extra 30 seconds, 60 seconds on one ship.
Absolutely, especially when we're talking about a restriction that is more restrictive when it comes to the points used for T2 and pirate or navy ships and their different resist profiles. Is the last one? It took a good 2 minutes for the last Caracal to go down from one team, and nobody brought any Logi. It was all either rep drones or local tank. But the Lynx actually didn't even end up getting killed in the end. The fast tackle went for an Orthrus and was able to catch it. And the Lynx were the last thing to die for the other university team. So it's not even something you have to go for because, like I said, you're risking something when you spend your points in one specific area to make yourself strong, because you don't have the points or the pilots and ships available in this setup to just go all out, have both Logi and Lynx and everything else, because once you do that, you're going to limit yourself to 3 pilots and a couple of points left. Another important note, this was something that was settled early because we felt some people might do this and it would become kind of a norm setup, was bringing undermanned comps or noob ship comps so that they could bring like a single Cerberus with a scimitar and be able to just put a couple noob ships on there. So we do not allow undermanned comps and we do not allow noob ships. So it has to be 5 versus 5. We won't allow a 2 or 3 man team to attempt to wipe out an entirely manned enemy fleet.
So the lowest point ships that you can bring are the Tech 1 frigates at 2 points. And the teams have 33 points from which to build a composition around.
Right. So in theory, and I wouldn't be surprised if I saw this later today, is you could do 6 points for your frigates, and then you could still bring a battle cruiser with a link or 2 on it. And with the way links are now, you could bring multiple links on a T1 battle cruiser with the new rigs. And then you could still have room for T2 Logi. So I expect at least 1 or 2 teams to try that, to bring a really powerful battle cruiser, a really good Logi setup, and then just throw in a couple of frigs for support. It would be top heavy, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. Maybe a Drake.
Maybe a Drake, and then you better hope you have the application.
Right. Full target painters.
Yeah. There should definitely be some interesting comps. There's definitely a lot of wiggle room here. I am still waiting for an EVE esport tournament to explicitly allow micro jump field generators in a match. I understand why they're not going to, but I think it would be quite spectacular.
It would have to, and Pandemic Legion would definitely have to attend. It would have to end the boundary rules.
Oh yes. Perhaps something like you've instigated here, where you do have a boundary like VT, like the Neo, and like EVT. However, unlike those other tournaments, in this case, if you pass the boundary, it's not an instant death. You don't have to be blown up like most of habitual euthanasia. You have 30 seconds to realise what's happened, turn around, get your arse in gear, and get into the arena with your tail between your legs. A little bit different, I think.
Exactly. I also, when I read the rules for AT this year, I was so angry that I couldn't just boosh somebody out to a early death, especially some Lynx or Logi ship. But that's the way things go. I think you might have handed me an interesting idea for our next tournament series. So we might do a smaller gang thing and maybe allow that just to test it out and see how many people will bring that setup.
Full teams of command destroyers. Who can jump the most people out?
You just have to have that one ship left. Just put a max speed Condor and run around the arena while everybody else gets jumped out.
Well, just fit defensive scrams and scram yourself, and then suddenly no one's getting jumped out, and now you've got 10 command destroyers sitting, shooting each other, trying to jump in, and never working.
Oh, yeah. I think we've gone down the rabbit hole on this one.
We have.
So our Drake pilot, God bless him, he must be in an armor Drake, because this is taking a while for our one last pilot. We may have to move on from this match.
And of course, is it the red or is it the blue that we're waiting for?
Well, as the CEO of Blue Republic, I will go ahead and call him a red, whether he is a red or a blue. So
I see someone calling that they are undocking. So the glorious
all right, looks like
armor
he's there.
drake. If he
It's
lands
good for
anything
that
other
slow
than an armor
arrive time.
drake, if he lands anything other
Absolutely.
than an armor drake, I'm going to be extremely disappointed.
Extremely disappointed. So, for those of you who may not know, whether you're new to EVE or new to tournament series or anything like that, some of the differences in ships is how they're tanked, and the joke that we might be getting if you don't get it, armor just makes you slower, so you turn slowly, you warp to gate slowly, you move slowly. So, and a Drake is actually a popular shield battle cruiser, so seeing a armor fit one, while not entirely unheard of, would definitely be a good joke to bring. It was interesting to see during the Alliance tournament this year that fact that we had there were a large mix of people that were both new to esports or new to EVE or just new to the AT in general, talking in chat, asking questions. If you guys have questions between matches, feel free to throw them in either RVB EVE Twitch or even T Twitch, and maybe we'll pull a couple questions up while we're doing the stream here, while these armor drakes are getting in place.
Yeah, I think the participation in AT this year was up from last year. I know last year they had a bit of an issue filling all the team spots. In fact, I think maybe there was only 3 teams too many, so the raffle for the last few slots was extremely competitive. Whereas this year there was plenty of teams applying, and now with these sort of grassroots tournaments like this tournament here, like the Event T one, the barrier for entry used to be you have to be really, really good to fly in the
Right.
AT, or you have to commit a whole bunch of plex if you don't win the previous one. Nowadays, anyone can just join one of these grassroots. You could be an alpha clone probably and get into one of these teams and fly something useful. Especially when you're limited to Tech 1 battle cruisers and below. There's always going to be room for frigate pilots.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that is either understated sometimes, even in the AT, but especially in a venue like this, that when you're allowed to bring a setup without bans, you can determine, and you can have frigate guys running around and doing some real damage and being absolutely vital to your team.
Of course, there's always the chance that someone will bring something so completely off the wall that it breaks the tournament till, as happened in the Amar Championship. I don't know if you remember that. One of the teams tried to bring a magnate, and it hadn't been coded into the tournament till, because who the hell would bring a magnate to a PvP tournament? And it broke the tool.
It's always fun to take something that a GM or a dev has taken hours and hours and hours, or even weeks, to develop, and then breaking it very, very quickly.
I think EVE
So it's
players are the
always my
best at
goal.
that.
Absolutely, we have so many people who are adept at that.
Okay, I'm starting to see some teams landing on the field.
All right, looks like RVB is landing, and we do have an armor ship in a shield comp, but it is not a Drake.
The thing is, though, if you're bringing a comp that you mix your tanks around, then either you've got a specific plan for that ship, or you don't need to rely on external factors. For example, remote rep drones,
Exactly.
logic cruiser. If you're bringing a full DPS team, it doesn't really matter how you're tanked. So maybe that's the idea.
Right.
Maybe this is the press F1 team.
So, well, I wouldn't even necessarily. I would say that because we do see 2 Caracals and 2 Hecates, but we have the Ashimu there, so it's not a pure F1 team. They could be relying on the webs of the Ashimu, because like the Balgorn and the Crewer, it gets that web bonus. They could be relying it to catch things, but it is going to be slower than the Hecates, and those are also going to be armor. This is definitely an interesting setup. I think I'm going to be looking for these Hecates and this Ashimu Sorry if you can't see it right now. We're not going live because we're still waiting on one team. That Armor Drake might still be in store. But basically we have from RVB a 2 Caracal, 2 Hecate, and an Ashimu setup. So we do have, I'm looking for these Caracals to simply kite around and probably Rapid Light fit. And the Hecates and the Ashimu are just going to be heavy tackle with their armor. Like you said, with this setup, it doesn't require that unification of tank if you have a specific goal in mind for the ships that are off tank. If you're not bringing remote jet drones, which are a little varied in the rules we have, and if you're not bringing Logi, then it's not required at all. The meta for this, as you would call it, is very allowing of this kind of setup. And I
Of
would
course,
be surprised
interesting
to see
to
it win.
note, the RVB team have come in, their entire team has come in at 20 from the center of the arena. So if those are F1 Scram Web Hecates, it's an interesting position to put them in. So maybe they're rail, or maybe they're planning on just burning in, or maybe it was a mistake. So we are just waiting for the Coupbois.
We are waiting for the Coop boys. We may have to. Oh, they are getting in now. It looks like we are having a slight issue. We'll get that team on grid in one moment.
Of course, it's not Eve without technical difficulties.
Exactly. Yes, sir. Test conceded. The next match would have been match 4. Oh no, sorry, that was match 2. Match 2 was seeded by Test to make a Margrade again. We're building a wall around Highsec and making the pirates pay for it.
So a lot of people don't realize that these tournaments in a game that doesn't really support this type of play take an incredible amount of work from a very small number of people to pull off. CCP puts an incredible amount of effort into the AT, and the EVNT guys just do an absolutely phenomenal job coming up with their own thing and doing their own thing. And it's completely done by volunteers. And you have tournaments like this, again, completely done by people for fun, just to for your entertainment. It's very impressive to see like this grassroots movement, people getting these teams together, people competing, and people taking the time to organize events like this.
Yeah, it's interesting and it is fun for me. It is a lot of work, but I will take this opportunity to say thank you for everybody who not only contributed. We had a lot of people simply donate ISK or time, or the people who showed up to compete. But this is essentially what RVB does on your average day or your average weekend. Like I said, the first was it looks like we might have a miswarp. All right, so more technical difficulties ahead. But as I was saying, we decided to make this event public just to raise the bar and get us competing with other groups and get other groups competing with each other in this structured kind of way. It is interesting, it is fun, and thank you for everybody participating, watching, and contributing.
So we're just juggling the teams around into the correct positions.
Yes, so we are going to be slightly behind schedule until we do have another match that is going to be a bye later. Rote Capel sent a Canadian team, but they had a scheduling issue that came up at the last minute, and a couple of their members could not attend. So we'll be back on track for the later matches, but the next match will be moved 15 minutes to make room for this one. All right, looks like we are about ready to start. We'll be going to the arena in a couple of minutes, just getting final confirmation from these teams. All right, and we are going live to the arena with Coupbois versus RVB. All right, so we have some interesting setups here. We have a double Brutix, double Punisher Kiri's fleet versus 2 Caracals, 2 Hecates, and an Ashimu. This is going to be, I dare say, a bloodbath.
Yeah, I think those 2 Brutixes, if they are blaster fit and they get in on top of just about anything here, then, well, I think we can say goodbye to whatever gets tackled. Because on the other side you have Caracal, Ashimu, Hecate. None of them can survive long under the fire of 2 Brutixes. And the Brutix, of course, has a phenomenal hull tank, and based on the fact that they brought no Logi, I'm going to have a guess that these might be hull tanked Brutixes. And everyone knows hull tanking is for real men.
Absolutely it is. So we're about to start the countdown in local after a quick check. Yep, we're just getting last minute confirmations, and I think you're right about the blaster setup. We do see the entire Coupbois team coming in at 0 and the RVB team all at 20. We're just doing one last minute check and then we'll get started.
Yep, just a quick point to note for everyone watching on this stream. On the left, the blue team, although labelled as RVB, I believe that is the Coupbois. And our technical team is scurrying away in the background now, and I believe that will be changed very shortly. I can hear people getting hit over the head with folders and all sorts of stuff from our technical team now.
So we'll go live as soon as that is ready. Countdown is already started. So we'll see here in a few minutes how these Hecates are going to try and deal with the Brutix Punisher combo.
Yeah, this could be all to play for, really. If those Caracals could just kite around and avoid those Punishers, then maybe they have a chance here. But I'm going to put my money on the Coupbois for this one, I think. Those 2 Brutises are scary.
I would agree with you.
And the match, 3, 2, 1, and we are underway now.
So I'd say the only chance they might have is to try and take care of these Punishers early and kite the entire team until they have time to deal with the Brutix or pick them apart.
The Hecate is rushing in immediately to try and screen those Brutixes, and the entire Coupbois team just rushing straight back.
And we also see ECM drones going immediately out onto the Ashimu and the Hecate that are trying to screen here. The Caracals are pulling range, but
the Caracals
we'll have to see.
Pulling range. One Hecate is down. The second Hecate, he is taking damage, and there's a little bit of damage on. He's taking a lot of damage. That first
One of the Punishers is going down, but the second Hecate is already eliminated from the RVB team before even the first blood is scored on this Coupbois Punisher.
Punisher's, of course, one of the tankiest Tech 1 frigates in the game. So
Absolutely.
if they now with those 2 Hecates off the field, then that Punisher, I doubt he'll be able to survive now. He's in he's in very low structure, but he had a chance there. If he managed to just kite away, then I don't think the Caracals can kill much else, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the thing you have to do to make sure that if they're not hull tanked, these Brutixes can't just catch you and kill you. But at the same time, these are not easy frigates to kill. Even with the application of the rapid light missiles, the Caracals, those Punishers are not going to go down quick. And we already see, well, we do see the Kyries caught for
that is a
the
big
Coupbois
moment.
Team.
Yeah, without that Carries, they will find it really difficult to catch those Caracals now. And the Caracals, unless they're really terrible, shouldn't be caught by Britixes. They should be able to just kite
Absolutely.
around. And can the Britixes tank long enough to survive?
So that's going to be the question: are these EC drones by the Coupbois team? Oh, there goes the Ashimu for RVB, and this is becoming exactly what you said. It's the Brutixes, one Punisher, and the Kyries still left from the Coupbois team, and just the Caracals remaining from RVB.
I mean, that Carries is moving, but...
And he goes down.
And he's down.
Looks like they just hit reload. They were just trying to keep up with him, overheating their micro warp drives. And trying to keep up with this electronic attack frigate. So now here's the question. Oh,
I'm seeing a Caracal looks like he has been tackled.
Like
he is not moving.
He might be caught.
Yeah, it looks like that Punisher of Cog has managed to grab onto that Caracal. And that's a big deal once those Brutixes arrive.
Absolutely. His velocity just dropped. So he is caught, and he is taking very high damage. I was going to say there was a slight chance they could take it. But they would have had to kill an entire Brutix and a Punisher in just the remaining few minutes, and it looks like that is just not going to happen.
No, I mean, there's a chance if they manage to kill that Punisher, perhaps the Brutixes don't have their own tackle, and if that's the case, then you would expect to see the Caracals be able to just sort of kite out of range again.
But it looks like the Punisher is pulling range because the Brutixes do have their own tackle.
It does look like that.
They are pinning both Caracals down.
One Caracal down.
Yeah,
second
one coming back in to save his Caracal buddy from the Punisher, but both Brutixes now have both Caracals tackled, and that looks like the end of the match.
And that's the second Caracal down, and boys take this one with strong victory there. Still have both battle cruisers and a Punisher left.
And we'll go ahead and go back to the studio for some more commentary and prep for the next match.